Our movie starts with Elizabeth. Elizabeth doubles as a teacher while being a big gold digger. However, she is not at all fond of this work, and she hopes to become wealthy. Elizabeth also went on a date with a wealthy man, and Elizabeth will get married to him very soon. She quits her job as his teacher because of this. All of the school's teachers bid him farewell after this. Elizabeth then travels to see her boyfriend. Elizabeth's boyfriend visits his mother when they are both at home. Elizabeth's boyfriend has packed her possessions in this picture. Elizabeth's mother provides evidence about Elizabeth's boyfriend. Elizabeth doesn't love him, therefore, she is only getting married for financial gain. Elizabeth tells her boyfriend everything. There is no such thing as "I really do love you." Then, his mother queries Elizabeth about his boyfriend's birthday. Elizabeth, thus, is unable of recalling his boyfriend's birthday. Elizabeth's boyfriend becomes irate when he sees this, then separates them and takes Elizabeth away from her house. Now, Elizabeth's plan to marry a wealthy boy has also failed. After 3 months, all of the money runs out. She must begin her teaching career all again in the same school. Elizabeth first met Amy, a second teacher, when she arrived at the school. Elizabeth doesn't respond well when Amy tries to communicate with her, and Amy thinks that this is a really bad thing. Then Elizabeth makes the best friend of her whole school career with another teacher. She tells him after that she would soon marry a wealthy man, quit her job as a teacher, and find a rich boy. On the same evening, Elizabeth visits a bar in order for her to find a wealthy boy there. Then a boy arrives. Elizabeth then begins flirting with him, additionally attempts to seduce him. However, as soon as she learns the boy isn't wealthy, Elizabeth therefore drives him away. She does not encounter any wealthy men that evening. She returns home disappointed and goes to bed after that. She doesn't even sleep well that night and doesn't get enough sleep. Elizabeth then leaves for school. She so feels incredibly lazy. Additionally, she sleeps a lot. Because of this, she asks the students to watch TV in class while she falls asleep in the room herself. Elizabeth now visits the canteen during her lunch break. The school's gym teacher Russell then appears. Long ago, Elizabeth began to like Russell. Nevertheless, she is a teacher. He also doesn't have a lot of money. Elizabeth doesn't value him because of this. Then, as soon as Elizabeth exits the canteen, she afterward encountered a handsome teacher. Scott is the name of that teacher. Scott is sporting a pricey watch. Knowing whom Elizabeth knows, Scott is quite wealthy, and then he meets Elizabeth Scott. So he learns that Scott has been coming to the school to teach for a while. However, he isn't attending class. He and Elizabeth converse. Then she finds that Scott isn't dating anyone. Scott then shows Elizabeth a photo of his ex-girlfriend. Scott's former girlfriend was quite attractive. Elizabeth makes a decision after noticing her shape. The doctors inform her when she visits them to get breast implants installed in order to impress Scott that the total cost of his surgery would be $9,000. When Elizabeth hears this, she is shocked. She didn't have a lot of money, yet despite this, she didn't give up. She then calls each of her friends to request a loan. Every detail about Elizabeth was known to all of her friends. Because of this, nobody lends to Elizabeth. The student tells Elizabeth in class the next day that the car wash will be completed this weekend by the 7th class team. Additionally, these students previously made $6,000 by washing cars. When Elizabeth hears this, she is shocked. She also sees a chance to get his breasts implanted. Liz makes a choice that she will lead the car wash team this time. However, that pupil tells her, because Amy is once again in charge of the team this year, this won't happen. Then, in order to get Amy out of her way, Elizabeth goes to the principal, and by using words to the principal, she elevates herself to the position of team leader for the car wash. Then on the day of the car wash, Elizabeth, therefore, arrives that day dressed in very short attire, which many men are captivated, and a lot of people visit the car wash. This car wash generates a lot of revenue for Elizabeth, but she takes some of this cash and hoards it. Amy observes while acting, though afterward, she also complains to the principal. However, they lack any supporting data to make this claim. The principal doesn't take Amy's words seriously because of this. Amy becomes really irate with Elizabeth as a result. Then, while Scott and Elizabeth are speaking, Amy then makes her way there. She also discloses Elizabeth's surgery to Scott with the intention of insulting Elizabeth. Scott, though, values Elizabeth. Here, Amy's strategy fails. Then, gradually, Elizabeth's life starts to go well. Elizabeth's parents give her some cash at school to enable her to properly care for her child. Elizabeth puts money aside to pay for breast implants. At the school's winter party, Scott tells Elizabeth once again Amy's liked by him. Elizabeth completely breaks down upon hearing this, and she regrets it. Elizabeth then meets Russell, the gym teacher at the school, and they had a lengthy conversation. Additionally, a strong bond develops between the two of them. A few days later, during the winter break, Elizabeth is invited to dinner by the parents of one of her students. Garrett is the name of the student. Garrett informs all. Rosie, the most attractive girl in the school, is someone he likes. He also tells them he's about to pop the question to her. Garrett has also written a poem for that. Knowing this, Elizabeth tells Garrett in private that Rosie won't ever impress you. Elizabeth was the most attractive student in her school, and she was aware that no girl would want to date Garrett. Scott meets Elizabeth at school a few days later. She is subsequently invited to one of his bar parties. Elizabeth attends a bar party at night. Russell attends this party as well. Scott then begins singing at the party, and he makes a proposal to Amy while singing the song. Elizabeth becomes quite irate after seeing all of this, while Amy becomes very emotional at seeing it all. She then departs the celebration with a friend. Elizabeth's friend then tells her inside the vehicle that the school will administer a test. Whichever teacher's student earns higher marks will get that teacher a reward of $5,700. Elizabeth once more sees an opportunity to raise money for surgery upon hearing this. She now attends class the next day. She then begins teaching every student strictly, in order for the class's top student to win money as compensation. The friendship between Russell and Elizabeth also begins to improve at this time. On the other hand, Amy and Scott have just begun dating. However, Elizabeth did not instruct the student for the entire school year. She eventually realizes it, so that no student of his will be able to surpass. Knowing this, Elizabeth refuses to give up and develops a strategy to help her pupil succeed. Elizabeth then adopts a new look. She later works as a news reporter and meets the professor who ordered the test to be completed. Elizabeth meets that professor and seduces him. Elizabeth is then taken to his office by him. Elizabeth here adds some drugs to the professor's beverage. The professor drinks it and faints. Elizabeth later steals the test's answer sheet. Those exams are now being held 1 month after, and the exam is won by Elizabeth's student. Elizabeth then receives a $5,700 reward. Elizabeth is ecstatic to see this, considering that she can now get her surgery. Amy, though, is really depressed. She didn't win $5,700, therefore, the students will then be taken on a trip a few days later. Elizabeth thus wants Amy to skip this trip with Scott. Amy's apple has something mixed in by Elizabeth. Once Amy has finished her apple, his face has a reaction as a result. Because of this, Amy was unable to travel. Then, Amy notices Elizabeth and Scott leaving on a trip, so Amy becomes quite irate. Thereafter, Amy arrives at school and, upset with Elizabeth, moves Elizabeth's desk into her class. In Elizabeth's class, she also sets up her desk. Amy then uses her own key to break Elizabeth's desk's lock. Following that, she checks. She then receives the test answer key here. Anyone who views will comprehend. Elizabeth student won in this manner. Amy then goes to the principal while carrying the answer sheet and shares everything with her. Knowing all of this, the principal becomes irate, and Amy hears the principal say, "We would need the statement of the professor in charge of that test in order to punish Elizabeth." Amy then visits the processor. She is intimidated, and she is getting ready to testify. Elizabeth Scott makes the menu plate while we are here. Finally, both of them pretend to be intimate. Whose news does Elizabeth pass down to Amy in order to manipulate Amy and Scott into splitting up? Amy learns about it at that point. She thus grows to love it. Garrett, Elizabeth's student, then makes a proposal to his crush the next morning, so her crush turns him down. Also, Garrett is insulted in front of everyone. Elizabeth realizes this after seeing the Garrett, that she is doing something Russell is doing as well. Actually, despite how much Russell loves her, she never acknowledges him. Elizabeth then decides to assist Garrett. She gives Garrett her bra after that. Elizabeth then informs everyone that she witnessed Garrett engaging in activity with a senior girl. Garrett then displays Elizabeth's provided bra, and upon seeing this, everyone starts to believe in Garrett. They also believe that Elizabeth is not lying, and Garrett wins over the hearts of every student. Amy also gets there at this time, also informs Elizabeth that "I am all-knowing. That is how you stole the test answer sheets." However, Elizabeth had instructed the photos to be delivered to the professor's home, and uses those photos to blackmail the professor. Actually, Elizabeth then was the photographer of these images. When the professor was intoxicated, upon viewing those photos, the professor decided against testifying. Elizabeth meets people when she is in school that Amy has switched desks. Lizzie was aware. It was said that she had drugs on her desk. The desk in Amy's class right now. The principal then receives a complaint from Elizabeth. If Amy uses drugs at school, the police are called to the building, and Amy's desk starts to spill drugs. The police arrest Amy after observing what Elizabeth had kept there. Amy attempts to inform everyone. Nobody believes him when he claims that Elizabeth owns this desk instead of him. Amy is later dismissed from school as a result of this incident. Elizabeth meets Russell after everything has been resolved. She accepts his proposal as well. The two then begin dating. This is how our movie ends. Leave us a comment on how you found this movie recap. See you in the following movie recap.